Well, hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Steve Mercurio. And what if I were to tell you that here in the Buckeye State, this great, wonderful state of Ohio, that we had our own Roswell-type incident? Little talked about, little visited, but definitely a part of history that we cannot deny. This one's different, ladies and gentlemen. This one's completely different. This story stems 32 years ago on December 14, 1994. And let me play this dispatch.
Yeah, did you get any reports of any object in the air about 15 minutes ago?
Somebody called in, but I really don't know what that would be.
Yeah, but I mean, it was very strange.
Okay.
Looked like a back end of like one of them fighter planes, like the plane coming out the back.
Okay. Was it just like moving at a slow rate of speed?
It wasn't a slow rate, it was a fast rate, but it was coming down.
It was coming down?
Yeah.
Like straight down or at an angle?
Like an angle.
At an angle?
Yep.
Okay.
I mean, it wasn't real big in the back.
Okay.
Plane.
All right. Well, I'll tell you what, we'll check with the air base in Vienna and see if they have any report of anything in the area.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Okay. Bye-bye.
The date was December 14th, 1994. Right after midnight, dispatcher Roy Ann Rudolph got the first call. It was a neighborhood call, like any other call, except this one was about lights. Lights coming in through windows. Lights hovering over the neighborhood. No noise to describe where these lights were coming from.
What do you see when you're in the dark and the demons come?
1, 2, buried stories for you.
Welcome to Buried Stories. This is Steve Mercurio. I'm here with Jeff Mercurio. Jeff, how you doing tonight?
I'm good, Steve. That was a good opening.
Well, thank you. Thank you. What do you feel about this story, Jeff?
Man, I'll tell you what, when I was, I guess, a young teen laying in bed listening to good old Art Bell, this damn thing was playing in the background when I woke up, and I thought it was like that this was actually going on. So I had one of those War of the World moments. I was shocked, man. It scared me. It was
Wendell, tell me something. Before the show, have you ever heard of the Trumbull County UFO incident?
I have.
Really?
Yes.
When did you hear about this?
It's a big one. Oh, years ago. Yeah.
Nice.
It was in 94. So, yeah, most of my serious ufology endeavors. But yeah, Trumbull County, it's like you said, it's close to Roswell. I mean, it's a big one. It's up there with a couple of the one in Pennsylvania, the one that had the bell crate shaped craft and all that. But no, this one's intriguing just because there's so many witnesses. There are so many witnesses there, and like we said last show, I'm not going to credit a police officer having any more credibility than anybody else that sees what they see. But we do have some folks at work, and we have some recorded radio transmissions, and even phone calls that there was a lot of activity that night, a lot of witnesses. Sort of like Roswell, when it happened, all of a sudden we didn't hear it till the 70s or the 90s or whenever they really started talking about it. And you wonder what what all happened during all that time in between, because these people obviously experienced something. So it's an interesting story. I like it. Back in the days when Art Bell was talking about it and everything, it was funny when there's a UFO, the UFO network, MUFON.
Yeah, MUFON.
They
Yep.
have investigators everywhere.
Yep.
And the professionalism and the adeptness or capabilities of each investigator is totally different. You can get somebody that just wants to be part of MUFON and doesn't know a thing. And you can get somebody who's a scientist and really into the field and can read you data off on a subject. So, but Kenny Young is the MUFON investigator on this. And when he interviewed uh, with Art Bell, I think he was a fairly young guy, real young guy, almost so young, hard to take anything um, to heart that he's got opinions like everybody else, but he's been on
Absolutely.
it for years. He's been on it for years. I got to give it to him. He's stuck with it. And he's tried to carry it on as far as keeping it in the spotlight. So
Well, speaking
now,
of spotlights there, buddy, you notice I had to throw on some shades, right?
yeah,
I even turned up my light because here's the thing, right? We're going to get lit in this show. We're going to shed some light on this subject right here. Matter of fact, hold on. I'm going to switch my glasses again. Hold on. I had to reach. Now I know what you're thinking. Look at these. Look at these. Now I know
no,
what you're
you don't
thinking.
know what I'm thinking.
Why is Steve wearing women's sunglasses? Now I'm going to tell you why. These belong to my wife, right? And she's twice as smart as I am. Okay.
Oh,
And that's what the
yeah.
type of intelligence it's going to take to get through this show. We need that much intelligence, that much perspective, right?
All
Yeah.
right.
And let me tell you something. Even the largest of skeptics, and I'd probably throw my wife into that. She's a realist, right? But even the best of skeptics in the world are going to have a tough time or have had a tough time downplaying this one. I'm telling you, okay? This show right now, by the end, I'm going to reveal to you too why this UFO incident is completely different than any other one that we've covered or will cover in the future, is my guess, my best guess. Okay, so
You're building
Jeff,
it up, man.
roll with the tape, man. Tell us what happened.
Well,
Right.
first of all, how far is Trumbull County from where you are now, Steve, and where you and Jeff grew up?
I'd say right now, if I had to take a guess, okay, I'm down here in central Ohio. Trumbull's really far up northeast Ohio. Okay.
Youngstown, right?
Yep. So it'd be probably about a 2-hour drive from where I'm at. But if I had to guess where we grew up, Jeff and I, probably about an hour and a half from where we grew up.
All right, so I'm getting back into it. That was the first call that came in. So, like I said, there was professionalism there, and I like how this dispatcher gets into it.
996. We have a report by CC, actually 2 calls in of a vehicle in the sky, unknown object above Sampson Drive. Have you noticed anything?
What's the location?
The area of Sampson Drive.
North or south?
Sir, he just advised in the air, in the sky. He didn't advise direction.
998.
998, go ahead.
Did he give you a description on the object?
Public service, sir. I'll give you further.
Okay.
County Dispatch.
Okay.
Bob, I swear to God, 4 calls in on an unidentified object over Liberty.
4 calls.
4 calls on an unidentified flying object.
Run down, take a look. All right, we'll check it out.
Do you want me to call the air base and see if there's anything in the area?
We'll take a look.
I swear to God. You want to hear the call?
Come out here and coach you.
You couldn't hear the call. Wait a minute. I'm going to let you hear the call. Do you think I'm lying?
I believe you.
No, I swear to God. Listen.
Okay.
Wait a minute.
Come on, go ahead. Yeah, I'm identified flying object.
Here. Here. Somebody called in, but I really don't know what that would be. Okay.
We're going to fly into like one of those fighter planes. Call the air base and see if they got.
I'm stroking the hell out of this guy. Was it moving at a slower rate of speed? Did it get directly down? I'm going to start a freaking panic. You guys got freaking UFOs over there?
Yeah, ask them if they got any Fox in town.
Huh?
Ask them if Fox is in town.
If Doc is in town.
Fox.
Spock. Oh, you mean like Generations Star Trek thing? Smart ass. I'll tell them they're filming the sequel right here in Liberty.
I'll tell you what, the amount that is covered here and it's all on tape is fantastic. I mean, it's rare that you get the whole kit and caboodle with some of these chases and calls and stuff like that. A lot of that stuff gets cut out or it's made to disappear. But that Kenny Young, he put some footwork into this one and he caught a gem, in my opinion.
Absolutely. I mean, if the more you listen to these dispatch tapes, the more you get a better understanding of how intriguing one item, one unidentified hovering craft can get. Because as I watched each and listened to the dispatch tapes, and as I watched the videos of how they tried to explain this, I mean, it's hard to put an exact type of description. I mean, for example, I was hearing iridescent colors, purple, blue, with trailing fire, then blue, green. One officer explained that this thing was pulsating red at one point. Okay.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So when you're listening to these dispatch tapes, you know, take in what do average police officers get called for each night, right? Probably get called for, parties being too loud, especially up there, right? It sounds like it's a little bit more of a rural area than the city, right? So what are they getting calls about? Occasional car accidents, somebody driving recklessly, but then suddenly they get a call, multiple calls about something hovering in the sky.
Something's hovering in the sky and somebody pushed my cow over.
Yeah, can you imagine these police officers that evening? Put yourself in their shoes for a second, right? I mean, I heard two of them talking about how much more police officer can you get? Because I swear, two of the tapes I watched, two officers were talking about how they were at a donut shop.
Yeah.
Taking a break, enjoying some coffee and donuts when they got that call.
Yeah. That's what I saw too. That was funny. Where were you?
Absolutely.
He was almost embarrassed to say it. He said,
I know, right?
Donut shop.
Yeah. Smile on his face.
So, but I thought the best part of it, to me, the most intriguing part was the first officer's encounter, one where he got his car shut down. And
that was good.
That one there was the best part of it to me. And then everybody else trying to chase it around town and saying it's over here, it's over there, kind of thing. But a good story. So I mean, it was a good story. I just don't know why it wasn't pursued more from a standpoint of what it was, and it didn't even seem like the military got involved at all.
No, I don't think they did.
But I think they did see some jets, though. Right?
Yeah,
they saw some jets.
Yeah. Because at one point in the story, they had mentioned towards the end, and this was after, if I believe I'm correct, it was after the second call to the radar tower to ask about if they're seeing anything on the radar tower. I think one officer had mentioned climbing up a tower, an abandoned radio tower of his own, and taking a look around and noticing that there were jets taking off from the local airfield. Like so I do believe that there were military jets that eventually did take off.
I know the dispatcher went out to see it or got a ride from somebody. Did she ever see it?
No, I in this audio, I don't think she ever says she saw.
Yeah.
She
I
never
know
came back and
she
said,
went
"I
out to
saw it."
look.
Right.
She went out to look, and she even got a ride with somebody. But
Well, Wendell, you know too that just how professional you have to be as a dispatcher taking calls
Yeah.
or answering radio bases and stuff, no matter what the situation. Because there was one time I got a call as a dispatcher that this engineer, hey, we have a problem. A UFO has been following us for 5 miles, and you got a what? Excuse me, a what? A UFO. So everything's got to be taken seriously. And you can tell she's kind of nervous in this too.
Yeah.
How do you take it? The excitement, the adrenaline, the anxiety.
I think she played it very well, to be
Oh, yeah.
honest with you. I mean, look, you need to be able to chuckle a little bit. You need to be able to keep a very calm wit about yourself, right?
Right.
So,
Mhm.
it's not like you can laugh in the face of the person who's calling in. I
No.
think her time to chuckle a little bit is when she's communicating back to the officers, because how do you report that to an officer in the field? Like, hey, boys, we're getting some calls about something hovering in the sky
Yeah.
that's pushing a bunch of lights and not making any noise, right? I mean, how do you tell officers that? But I think she did a really good job, honestly.
Yeah.
And one of my favorite parts of her calls are the 2 calls to the radar tower. The first time she calls, she had to explain to them, "Hey, listen, this isn't a prank. You can
Oh,
call me right back and you
Yeah.
can verify that I'm a dispatcher with this, with Liberty Township."
Yeah.
Right.
The one part I didn't like, it was, I thought it was kind of sad, was a lady called in and she was genuinely trying to report something in the sky, elderly lady. And you could tell it wasn't the dispatcher that was on here, not the girl. It was a guy at the sheriff department or something.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
they had a recording of him, and you could tell he wasn't giving her the time of day. He wasn't taking any of it serious at all. And she was just trying to be a good citizen.
Right.
Saying what she saw and then just left it at that. But you could tell on his end, he wasn't taking it serious. And I thought that was very unprofessional on his part.
I agree, Wendell, but I'd go on to say this, it was a different time. I mean, it's weird.
Yeah, that's true.
Here we
That
are.
is true. 94.
Yeah, here we are talking about a story that's unbelievable to say is what, 32 years ago?
Yeah, it's still
But it
not
was
solved.
1994. I hadn't even graduated high school yet, right?
Mhm.
And the reason I bring this up to you guys is, Wendell, not only that gentleman's behavior, and I'm sure he didn't mean to be unprofessional, but again, imagine yourself receiving a call about somebody calling in a possible UFO. It's after midnight, right? You're assuming anybody
Right.
who's calling this time of night, right? What do they say? They say nothing good happens after midnight, right? Isn't that what they say?
Right.
So think about it
Yeah.
from a police officer's perspective or dispatch, right? Any call you get, it sounds like a loon. In their defense, it's now, I think what gives it credibility to them, and it starts to build up a little bit of, hey, maybe there's something to this, because I think that it took that domino effect to get to the point where they would remotely take this seriously, right? I think you get the same event that happens today, and you're going to get people out there much sooner. Why? Because it's the world we live in now. It's not so unusual to have documentaries about UFOs. It's not so unusual to hear pilots talk about strange things that they've seen, right? But we're going back to 1994. The only place you probably heard these things were late night television, coast to coast AM. Good old
Yeah.
coast to coast AM, right? So
Yeah.
I bring this up. Another reason why I bring up 1994. This is before most people had regular access to cellular phones. This is before most people had the ability to manipulate video and photos and technology that we can manipulate now, right? This is almost one of those heydays of source material, because you can't really manipulate. Now you can manipulate that, but going back to then, it is so weird saying that. It was a different time period.
Yeah, that was the year I graduated. So it has been a long time, and you're right. We were still using cord. I mean, the big thing was cordless phones.
Yep.
So let's get back into some of this audio, see where we're at here.
Toby up and
You'll beam Toby up. I'd spin his ass so fast out of that friggin' I swear to God, this is our 4th or 5th call on it.
all right.
All right, bye-bye. And then it got...
I'll be in the area in about just 30 seconds here. Is it one particular block it's going over, or what area of the Sampson Road drive?
Okay, to our knowledge, we've had 4 different calls, and this particular one came over Sampson.
Okay, different areas on Sampson itself.
Yeah, they just said in the sky. That's all we have, in the sky.
Okay. Coming out the area.
On the area, checking for an object in the sky. Copy at 30 after.
County dispatcher.
Yeah, dear, this is Stay 33. This is going to sound wrong. I hear Liberty Police are in an area that I got a call about a little bit ago. A woman called, claimed she saw something in the sky.
Yeah, you called me a little while ago.
Okay. I hear they're out there and they've got another call.
Yeah, we finally got one on it somewhere.
What the woman told us, on Sampson Drive, like midway in the block, there's a vacant lot or something.
I don't know. Hold on. I'll let you talk to the Liberty dispatcher.
Okay.
County dispatch, may I help you?
Hi, dear. This is Stacy from 33.
Hi, Stacy, how are you?
I got one of your...
Did you really?
This woman was almost...
Sorry.
She saw something. She told me that the area was like Sampson Drive. There's a vacant field midway through the block.
They're telling me this too, but it's probably some weather balloon or something. You know what I mean? They're checking the area, but these UFO calls are getting out of hand.
I don't know what it is.
If it was, what the hell did they come to Liberty for? There's no intelligent life in Liberty. Come on.
Might have been the greatest line of the night. The whole
That
night.
was, that was the line of the night.
Long shot.
Incineration.
Yeah.
Smooth green, no noise.
No noise.
It was low flying and took off.
Oh, come on.
Fifth Avenue.
Are you serious? It's driving up Fifth Avenue Extension. Now, nobody... Oh, Christ.
Not driving, are you flying? It came down and just zooped over it with a big glowing object.
Well, we got 4 calls on it. The last guy said it was a fighter plane. So you tell me that I would do a big news story on the water in Liberty and the effects on the people, because these people are clearly afflicted.
Come on. You can't make that up. Look,
No.
you cannot make what you're hearing up. Okay? I mean, you have to take that however you have to take that, right? As the source material of what we're hearing. Okay? And I mean, the way they describe this thing is it's unbelievable. And she's sitting here listening to that. Can you
Right.
imagine just sitting there listening to that as people are calling in? Average human beings just calling in, talking about this. I mean, what do you take on that? Seriously.
It would be, especially for that time, like if you called me now and was telling me that there was a UFO and all these different colors, I'd be like, I understand, I'll get somebody on it. And you go to another call because that's the world we live in, like you said. But 1994, Close Encounters of the Third Kind, you're thinking of all this and, Star Trek and Star Wars and Trumbull County's Liberty is a small little town. So it would kind of just shock you and you take it as a prank, but so many calls are coming in that you can't take it as a prank. So I'm sure you'd have this nervous laugh and some anxiety and what do I do now moments and who do I call and all those kind of situations.
Yeah, the you guys watch any Stephen Greer?
I I have seen Steve Greer.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's 4 episodes talking about him, but and these are my opinions, all right? So anybody watching, don't take them as gospel, and this is just my opinion. But what his big fear is that the government's reverse engineered all these crafts, and their design is to get a bunch of them and go out and do cattle mutilations, uh, abductions, and things like this, and create fear. And Steve brings up a good point. You always have to keep in context. This is 1994. It's not
Mhm.
now. I mean, even through our shows, we've even come to some maybe not conclusions, but we've touched on some things about their how they get through space. And so when people are talking about they could never travel that far distance in space, you just look at them like they're a fool now. Of course they're not. If they're going to use a rocket to get through space, they'd never get here. But that's not the point. Whether they're all here or not. But Greer's big fear is, or his point, from what I take of listening to him, is that the military industrial complex, the whole design is to create fear and a fake invasion at some point, and to make everybody think that we're being invaded, and it all goes back to funding for the military industrial. We need to defend against these things, so we need funding to do so. Space Force might be the first of it.
Yeah, I could see that.
So
Yeah.
it all goes back to money. But what his fear is, because we've even deduced during our shows that if these things are real, they can't be hostile. They just can't, because there's nothing we could do anyway if they are. And that's what Greer's fear is. I even saw one documentary, it wasn't Greer, it was somebody else, where they said they met an extraterrestrial and they were going to get him help because his ship was broke or something. And he said, "Come on, we'll go over here to the military base." And just like you said, Jeff, last episode, we're barbarians to them. That's exactly
Mhm.
what he said. This extraterrestrial said was, "No, I don't want to talk to those barbarians. Though I don't need to talk to them. Can you
Right.
just try to get me some of this mineral or whatever?" And but Greer's one of his main pushing points is that the military industrial complex is going to reverse engineer all these craft, fly them over everywhere, do some cattle mutilations, do some abductions, and create fear in the general public. And then things will be funded to defend against that in the name of national security. And he pushes it hard. He pushes that hard because he thinks that these things aren't malevolent, that they're just trying to help us, kind of thing. And this example in Trumbull County it makes you buy into a little what Greer is saying as far as how the public would respond. You understand, because it's really, Jeff, like you said, today we would be tuned in out of fascination more than fear nowadays. But back then they were all fear. Oh my God, something's flying. Okay, something's flying. Let's go see it.
Right.
Um, but it's not like that. And then it was also ridiculed back then as well.
The only thing I got about that is you take that Phoenix Light incident and we'll do a show about that. But I mean, all of Phoenix pretty much saw that one. And
Right.
there wasn't a mass fear. In fact, they made, like, the governor or something made fun of it.
It was a mass curiosity. Everybody just wanted
Yeah.
to
It
know
was.
what it was.
Right. So
It
I
was.
think if
Yeah.
if the government put these things out there, people would all rush out and take pictures.
Yeah.
and do like
Well,
selfies in front of it.
you can hear Wendell, you're right, because if you listen to the dispatch tapes between the officers and the dispatcher, you can hear the ridicule, right?
Yes.
They're bringing levity to the situation. They're laughing about it. And another thing that I've noticed as I've listened to these dispatch tapes, boy, first of all, boy, do I wish I could listen to every phone call that was calling, because I guarantee you, if these dispatch tapes exist, I'm certain each and every one of those phone calls exist.
Oh, sure.
And what I would be looking for, because one thing I'm feeling like I'm not hearing is the only time you're really hearing UFO discussed is through the dispatchers and the officers, right? The people calling it in, they had one guy calling in what a military jet, right? It's 1994. These people, honestly, they've heard of UFOs, but isn't it weird that they're not necessarily using the UFO term to try to describe what they're seeing? They're calling it a bubble. They're calling it a craft, a hovercraft of all colors. They're describing it in ways. And I'm sure a couple of these people calling it in might have mentioned UFO, but it goes back to what you guys are saying with ridicule. You're trying to call something in after midnight that's producing all these lights, that's not making noise, and you're not trying to use the UFO term because you don't want to be called crazy, right?
Yeah, especially then.
Yeah.
Being a police dispatcher, you have to have a certain mentality, and you got to be taken seriously, and you got to take everything seriously. So if your supervisor was to come in the next day, you don't want to say, "Yeah, I had half the night doing a UFO chase," because you don't want to lose your job. You don't want
Yep.
to have to go get a psych eval, and even if the cops say, "Yeah, that we were chasing this thing and we don't know about it," they possibly could go get a psych eval. But nowadays, like I said, it's a different story.
Well,
Yeah.
think about it. As the dispatcher, you're almost glad that there's so many witnesses, being other police officers, to this event, because it goes back to what you said, Jeff. That's the last thing you want to report about what you did for the last 8 to 12 hours, right? And
Yeah.
as an officer, at least you could say, hey, if you don't believe me, talk to Todd, the officer. He was
Right.
out there chasing this thing last night, right?
Mm. Yeah. Yeah.
So what do you guys think about this, being homies there in Ohio, fellow Buckeyes? How was it when you were growing up? What was this story like? And was it just an urban legend when you were there? Was there a lot of
No,
buy-in to it, or was it still on the fringe?
well, I graduated in 1994, and this came out on Art Bell a little bit later, maybe a couple of years or so later.
Yeah.
1994, I mean, I read a lot about UFOs and everything else like that. I didn't think much of them. I mean, out of high school, that's the last thing on your mind. You just want to go out and party and find a job and all that good stuff. But once I heard it on Art Bell, I was fascinated. I was like, "You got to be kidding me!" Well, like I said, it was in the middle of the night, and I'm hearing these officers, because I used to listen to a Bearcat scanner
Yep.
back then and do some like police chasing or, trying to follow them and stuff like that. But I listened to the scanner quite a bit. And when I was hearing the scanner calls, I thought this thing was happening right now. It made me sit up straight and jump up out of bed. And finally, then our bell would come on and laugh a little bit and saying, "Oh, this is great," and the bumper music. And I was like, whoo.
This was just when I got it, just after I got out of college. And,
Was it? Yeah.
and the internet wasn't the big thing it is today either.
Right.
Steve talked about cell phones. The internet wasn't on full go yet either.
Nope.
And so now things we get in seconds, we've waited years for this stuff to come out on this story, which things that we would get in hours, days, or shortly after. But So that I think that may have impacted things as well. But isn't that interesting how without that communication technology that we have now, how slow the world
Yeah.
was in catching up to this stuff? I mean, the government had carte blanche to do whatever they wanted until we got the internet, I think.
Oh, exactly.
You know?
Absolutely. And look, I same thing with Jeff. I mean, I hadn't heard this story until it came on Coast to Coast AM, and this happened in Ohio. I mean,
Yeah.
Yeah.
this is how little to big that this story is. Not only is this on Coast to Coast AM, I believe they discussed this on Unsolved Mysteries, which back in
Yeah.
our day,
Oh,
that
it's
was
everywhere now.
that
Yeah.
was where you went if you wanted a big story about something odd and weird. If you made Unsolved Mysteries, boy, you were something big
Yeah.
because everybody watched Unsolved Mysteries.
What do you guys
Right.
think? You think we're making it bigger than it was? Do you
No,
Oh,
think?
how could
I
we?
no.
It's all
I,
there.
I'm just
matter of
asking.
fact,
Do you think?
I would
Yeah.
What do
say
you think?
I would say in all of the UFO history, seriously, this may be the most underrated example, seriously, of a UFO incident. You know what, Wendell? I was listening to you earlier, and it made me actually come up with this statement, okay, or this question. The question is not whether this was a real event. The question is whether this was aliens or was this us testing equipment.
Mhm.
That's how sure I am that this incident is 100% real. That
Mhm.
it's just whether was this something of unknown intelligence or was this testing stuff we've been de-engineering
Right.
since Roswell or maybe before then.
Yeah.
I don't think it was ours yet. I don't know. It was, I wouldn't say early on in reverse engineering, because who knows when that actually happened and we started flying these things around.
Yeah, but Jeff,
But
where does that leave you though? Because you're not a big alien believer. And if it's not ours, where does that put you on this?
I can't really say aliens because I don't believe in aliens, but I would put that in almost like demonic. I mean, it didn't harm anybody, but it shut down cars, the police car and stuff, and eluded, you know, their chase.
Well, and it had the one thing I hate to talk about is lights. I hate it
Yeah.
when reports
Yeah.
have lights. Even that one guy that tried to debunk this said it's obvious they were looking at Mercury, Venus,
Oh, yeah.
and Mars, and I'm thinking, what hill did you come off of? Because
I know.
it's not from where we're at. But I did hear one guy say it was big, and I heard a lot of the light reports. Never did hear saucer shaped or anything. Did you?
Right.
Not
Just
necessarily.
large.
What was interesting about the shape was the length. They talked about the length. They talked about the size, right?
Yeah.
And they did talk about how alarmingly low this
Yes.
thing came to the ground. I heard some estimates at 50 foot to the
Yeah.
ground, and that's nothing.
Right.
And there was some talk about this possibly being a helicopter, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
But every single consistent report of this was it was silent.
Mhm.
Oh,
Every
yeah. Yeah.
single officer said the same thing. Every person calling in said the same thing, because when the dispatcher was talking to the air base or the radar, right? The thing they kept mentioning was that there's no sound to this. Because the guy would mention, well, maybe it's a helicopter, which would explain the lights or it hovering or this not. And the dispatcher's like, yeah, I could see that. And I would think you're correct, but there's no noise to this thing. Everybody's reporting that some people are reporting this thing is very fast.
It would be good to hear all the other calls and compare what they reported descriptions.
Yeah, and I will say this, Jeff, going back to what you were thinking on this, right?
Sure.
All right, let's look at the timeline. We had a show where we had mentioned Bob Lazar, right? And he was at this area, back in the 80s, right? Wasn't that when he essentially came out? Did Lazar ever say when he started? Because I don't.
89.
Okay. So, if he's talking about them, de-engineering this back in 1989, you're looking at 19, and he was already talking about them utilizing this piece of equipment, right? They might have only been doing test flies or whatnot, but I mean, think about it, where they could have been in 1994 with this technology by then.
Where's Wright-Patterson in relationship to Youngstown?
It's about maybe 3.5 hours, because it's about an hour and a half west of where I'm at.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's see what we got deeper into this here.
You get next to it here. They chill out a good way. See it? Is that just no, see it down over here just above the trees. A big, yeah. Okay, has it moved any? It looked like it might have flickered a little in that because it's moving slightly. Hey, do the binoculars. I would think the airbase could get a pretty good eye on it. Okay, Mikey's up here with me now. He's looking through the binocs. It looks like it might have moved just slightly because it moved from one side of a tree to another. But it's still visible right here where we're at.
Over about 11. About 11.
Ridge already. Ridge at the airbase. You say you're at Ridge at the airbase? Okay, it should be south of you, right?
Yeah,
Looks like it's doing circles. Look like it's doing circles? See it? It isn't moving.
What area is it in?
Huh?
What area?
Hang on 1 sec. Davey, what area do you think it's in now? Hang on a second. Okay, where you're at and where I'm at, I'm about half a mile south of Kings Grave on Henhide.
Half a mile south of Kings Grave.
It's still a little bit south of me, so where are you at as far as on Ridge Road?
You guys have to take P tests and all that, Howard? Because we went outside, we didn't see anything.
But I don't really get down. I'm not coming up on the main gate.
They all see it. We were all.
See, the one thing there is they're actually starting to take it really seriously.
They're excited.
They're excited. She came running in. We didn't see nothing, and you could hear the dispatchers, or not dispatchers, but the police talking to each other, using binoculars and everything. And all these cars are trying to get a sighting on this thing.
And I think that's why this is such an unusual story, right? I mean, it starts out, like I said, as you listen to these tapes with ridicule, laughter, the lady talking about how there's no intelligence, right? in Liberty Township. And now you're starting to hear a different take on this, right? I feel like this is another reason why you listen to the source material and it's real. You can hear the developing emotions in the dispatchers and the police officers from when the two gentlemen were sitting there having donuts and coffee, right? To now they're actually pursuing and witnessing history of sorts, right? And how their their perspective is changing in this, 2.5, 3 hour total event here?
Yeah.
I think at the end of the day, if you want to honestly listen to something that's completely honest, complete source material honesty, nobody manipulating it, nobody, making it political or anything. I think if you just listen to this source material from beginning till end, I think you honestly witness complete honesty and openness from, and kind of, Wendell, it goes back to what you were talking about, right? When in a couple episodes ago, we talked about people who have credibility, right?
Right.
I told you guys this story was completely different from anything. Do you guys want to take a crack at it? Why is this event, this ufology event, completely different than anything we've ever covered or will cover?
You got me gobsmacked. I don't know.
All right. Hey, Wendell, any ideas?
Not everybody was an official involved in it.
How about this? Let me give you guys a clue. Why do we know about this? Why is this event even known? Why is it?
Because they leaked. They leaked the tapes, didn't they?
Okay. But the source material, ladies and gentlemen, the source material of this UFO event is police dispatch tapes.
Yeah.
This is government
Right.
released source material about a ufology event.
Yeah.
Think about it. Lazar didn't have any official government release. Now, I understand you put this in front of the Congress and everything, right? They're not going to go, oh, this is sheer evidence that UFOs exist. What I'm trying to tell you is this: everything we've covered, there's always been all these questions about it, right? We talked, like I said, we talked about Billy Meyerson. We talked about Lazar. We talked about Phil Corso, and all of those things had some things to show, right? But there was so much skepticism and everything. What we're paying attention to and we're listening to is dispatch tape. This is official police dispatch tape. And this is why it's known. Without these dispatch tapes, none of this is known. So you have, for the first time, I believe in history, you have a ufology event, a directly sourced material from government sourced material.
That's
And
why,
you won't have this again.
that's why Kenny
Right.
Young was so excited when he got it. He got it in an email, I think, from an official there, but it wasn't officially released. It
No.
wasn't. The
no.
police department didn't sign off on it. It was leaked. And
And, but
and
that's
Art
why
Bell
it's
was
so
funny trying to
incredible.
get him to say, "Where'd you get the tapes?" Because he was
Right,
trying to
right.
dance around it and not throw anybody under the
You
bus.
know what's
but-
funny about that as well is I wouldn't know about it if it wasn't for talk radio.
Yep.
Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't across all these newspapers and stuff like that, like it is now. But yeah, you're right. This is disclosure before disclosure.
Exactly. And I promise you, I think rarely will you have an event like this again, right? Honestly, you will. And that's why I believe that if the ufologists of today, the disclosures experts of today, I think they're digging down some wells and they might be coming up with gold and silver every now and then. But I honestly think that they really need to revisit this episode again. The true ufologists, the true disclosure experts why haven't they brought in any of these people, any of those police officers into the Senate to talk about what they saw? Right? Think about that for a second. They actually could have played these dispatch tapes in those hearings and said, these are some of the officers. Meet Roy Ann Rudolph. This lady was on the phone for 2.5 hours talking about something being seen in the sky by all of these witnesses. And if you want to talk about credibility of the witnesses, we can go from Grandma Georgie all the way up to Lieutenant such and such from the Liberty Township Police.
Yeah.
Think about that for a second, right?
Yeah,
I mean, from a ufology event, and that's why I think that this event right here that we are discussing today, it's just so underrated. From all of the things that we hear about today and disclosure and everything else, this gem is just sitting out there halfway polished. Somebody someday is going to really polish this stone. And by the way, as far as source material, not only do you have this, most of those witnesses, I would say, are probably still alive. The police officers, the people that called in, I bet a lot of them are still alive. So that means, as we're still sitting here talking about Roswell and who's alive to this day and going to second generation sources, you could be going up here and tapping on this resource and talk to the direct people who saw this in a time before time, a time before you could manipulate this source code. That's why this story is so special.
And I think the
honestly.
patrolmen are willing. They've talked about it. I wonder how much ridicule they went through, though, right after it. And what maybe that's a little bit of why it didn't come out till later. That's why it had to be leaked.
Right. Yeah.
Because
I can see one officer, Wendell.
You know.
One officer, maybe two. But when you have that many from a couple different precincts or different, Liberty Township, I think there was a Howland Township or something mentioned.
Yeah.
When you have that many officers, I would guess, as I listen to the dispatch tapes, at least 3 to 4, maybe more separate officers witnessed this thing, right? Now, they all have different descriptions of what they witnessed. But
Yeah.
I think when you have that many, you all kind of make a joke a little bit laughy about it, but it's harder to really come out and criticize or say something, because all you have to say is, your commanding officer, oh, here comes ET, and you're like, it wasn't just me, Commander. We can get Freddie in here, we can get Billy, we can get Johnny, and they'll all tell you something extremely similar. So I don't think that they could have laughed this one off.
It has a lot of stop and reset points too. As soon as you get going on it, I saw red or yellow or green and blue lights. As soon as you get going on it a little bit, the next guy says, no, I saw red lights. And then you hear it was low, and it may have been helicopters. So there's always start and restops during this. And I think that impacted the believability a little bit of it, when I know 2 different patrolmen reported 2 different colors schemes on it. And that's why the calls, I think, you brought up a good point, Steve, would be an interesting dive into all the reports of what people were saying. Even the lady, I mean, I think she said bright lights was her,
Right.
but along the whole thing, it's hard to get any two the same.
Yeah, I
Besides,
agree with that.
there's just something there everybody agrees with. And, but the descriptions, it's hard to find 2 that match. And I think that sets us back. You were talking about Billy Myers, Steve, including him in with some of the more serious UFO incidents, even though I think his stuff's as valid as you can get. Him does set it back for most of people who are seriously looking at it, because it's out there. And
Yeah.
it's kind of the same way I see this in this story. If we could find 2 of the same during it, I think it would get a little traction. It just never gets traction. And so that's just something I noticed during it, because every time I would start getting on a high, had a good description, the next person wouldn't collaborate it. They'd say, I saw just all these bright red colors, and the first one didn't have any red in it. So that's something I
Well,
noticed.
that's the one thing about UFOs. You can never really get your finger right on to the description of these things, because we could all be sitting outside, and it'll come over my house. It'll look one way. It'll come over your house, Wendell, look another way, and then Steve's house. I mean, these things are magnificent when it comes to masquerading or shape shifting.
But a human nature, I think it throws doubt in if we don't have corroboration.
Well, there
Even
was a
like you said,
couple,
even if it comes
right,
over your house is red, my house is blue, and Steve's house is green. If
right.
it does that, there's no collaboration there. It's just something there. But was it the same thing? Was it something different?
Yeah.
It just throws doubt in there
Okay,
about if we're talking about the
Wendell,
same thing.
let me throw some doubt in your direction here for a second. The officer who climbed the tower,
Mhm.
right? Did you guys happen to hear what he said about it?
I heard his part, but I don't remember any distinctive description. What did he
Okay,
say?
so I was watching a video on YouTube where they were talking about this event, and supposedly when the officer got up to the top of the tower, he said he actually saw 3 different
Yes,
things
I
that
saw that.
created what looked like
Again.
a triangle
Yeah.
shaped item, right?
Yep,
So,
that's right.
Wendell, I mean, if you had all these different descriptions, right? Are they all seeing the same craft?
Well, that's what I
Or are they
mean.
all seeing a different craft
Yeah.
in different areas? Because the other thing you heard in the dispatch tapes was a lot of inconsistency where they thought it was at that exact moment, right?
Right.
Could we be talking about 3 different items, like the one officer who supposedly climbed the tower and saw, which could explain the different colored lights, could explain the different areas where this thing was flying
Yeah,
or
the
hovering?
different street names. Yeah.
Exactly. I mean, just throwing that out there. I mean, I did pay attention to that, so that could be.
It's good catch. Good catch.
Yeah.
'Cause that's what I mean. There wasn't collaboration. Were they all seeing the same thing? And maybe they weren't, which makes more
Yeah.
sense if there was 3 of them in the area. So
Yeah.
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 So, Jeff,
Exactly.
let me ask you, what do you take of the Trumbull County UFO incident?
My goodness, Steve, this is one of my favorite UFO stories that I've ever heard. I mean, I was gripped. Every time I listen to it, I'm still gripped. I get fascinated. My son, I try to get him to listen to it, and he's like, "Dad, it's an hour long." I'm like, all right, go away, go away. So,
Yeah.
so anyway, they don't have an hour to spare, you know.
Yeah.
But I love it because multi-county, and we bring in the air traffic control tower. I mean, it's got everything you want in ufology, if you ask me, as far as trying to track this thing. So, I mean, kudos to Kenny Young. You know,
Yeah.
I love this one.
Wendell, what do you think?
Well, I always like when we talk because I learned during our discussion. That's why we even do this. I mean, if you get away with, kind of wanting everybody to out there to kind of see something and talk about some of the stuff we talk about. Beyond that, we just talk because we like the subjects and we learn. I mean, if you notice, I go back and watch our episodes at times, and I hear my opinion changing as we go. I did it in last week's, the one that's coming out pretty soon. Because after we talk, that's why we talk. That's why we just don't sit here and keep it to ourselves and think our own thoughts are right and that's it. That's just the way it was. Because you bounce things off, you bring stuff back, you catch different things you may have missed or not even heard of. And so with this one, I mean, I think you might have a point there with the guy that saw 3. Obviously they were getting excited. You could tell in the dispatcher's voice, she was getting seriously excited. She was getting out of breath. Like not excited, fun excited, like excited. Is there something going on and it's going to be serious? And I just spent a half an hour saying I'm, using different lingo I shouldn't use as a dispatcher, talking to people that's on a recorded line. And now this may be more serious than I originally thought. And you could tell that there was a little stress in her voice. And it's definitely something happened. There was definitely something there. I have no doubt something was there. I don't think it was helicopters. I don't think it was jets. It might be a stretch on the reverse engineering, them flying them out that. But if they've been doing it since the 50s, who knows? It may have been really good. And you guys are by one of the biggest secret military bases in the world, that Wright-Patterson.
Yeah.
So, but or it could have been extraterrestrial. Who knows? But they definitely saw something. I'm with you on that, Steve. I have no doubt. They had, and it was the source is an official entity, which you would think would give it more credibility. Why I think nobody investigated is there's nothing there now. There's nothing there's not a crash. There's not rumor of anything retained besides what they saw. And I think that may lend a lot to why it's not being investigated heavier because it's poof. It happened and now it's not there. But yeah, one of the good ones. It's one of the good ones, one of the big ones. And some more probably needs to be done. Like you said, you got first generation witnesses. it'd be nice if somebody took advantage of that. Art Bell tried to, but he was interviewing Kenny Young when I heard him. I didn't hear him interview any witnesses.
No.
And Kenny Young is the MUFON inspector. So, he's not first generation saw it. It'd be nice to hear more from the patrolman and the dispatcher, and to hear what happened to them afterwards, just to see if they came together secretly and talked about it at breakfast or something. But yeah, it's one of the good ones.
Yeah, I would absolutely love to see them go back now, right here, right now, knowing what we know about ufology up to this point, right? Knowing what we understand about disclosure up to this point, right? Knowing now that there were actually government subsidized studies officially, right? To discuss actual UFOs or things that weren't UAPs, things that we're not aware of. We know this now. So now, knowing what we know now, I would love to see a documentary made now about this before this source material becomes too old to investigate, before you're talking to sons of the patrolmen or daughters of the patrolmen, right? Things that we're realizing we made those mistakes right now in Roswell, right? Because it's real hard to go back now and revisit all that information. So that information becomes second generation, third generation, right? I really think that they have an opportunity, knowing everything we've gone through now, that to revisit this now, because there is something there that this happened. I can't tell you this is aliens. I can't tell you. I could tell you that the technology that they're talking about in the dispatch tapes, what they're describing and all that, that's not, I don't think, of Earth. I don't think that that's of human technology or source, but I cannot tell you that this is aliens, right?
Right.
I mean, we've talked about too much for me to tell you straight up that this is aliens. Like Wendell, talking about the point you brought up, yeah, this is a couple hours for us to drive from
Right.
Dayton
Yeah.
to Trumbull County, right?
Yeah,
But
maybe
if
we
we're
go
talking
track
about
somebody down.
possibly warp, right? We talked about the warp bubble. That's a split second to them, right?
Day trip.
And I mean, what better way to start
Yeah.
showing humanity a little bit of this? If it's going back to what you were talking about with Greer, I mean, eventually people are going to see some things. How about test it out a little bit in a rural county up in northeastern Ohio, right? So,
Yeah.
I mean, I just tell you, ladies and gentlemen, look, we'll have plenty of shows from here on out, but and obviously some of them are going to be a great subject, right? But boy, it's going to be hard to top this one. I promise you, right? Like it's going to be a stretch to surpass what we've just talked about, boys.
It, on a side note, I always wondered why flying saucers was the choice craft style. I always thought that was kind of odd, not some sleek aerodynamic jet looking thing. But it was a flying saucer. And I looked into that, and we talked about the warp bubble and everything, and that it appears that the most efficient shape for that warp bubble to work is a flat, round surface.
Yeah.
It has to be
That's what I
equal. It has
figured.
to be equal, which kind of puts you in question on the triangles, like the Phoenix lights, because it must obviously work on the triangles too. But the most efficient shape would be a flat disc, and then a sphere, I think, was the second one. But
Yeah. And that goes back to mathematics.
because
too.
it has to,
Yeah.
because it's equidistant from the source of what's
Right.
manipulating gravity. I always found that interesting. So I was really, when I was looking at Trumbull County, I was really trying to hear somebody say saucer. I was really trying to hear somebody say what the craft looked like, and I never did. But they did say it was big and had a lot of lights and things.
Right.
Yeah.
Good one.
Well, last thing I got to say is, ladies and gentlemen, if you want to hear more of this story, there's the whole kit and caboodle out there. on YouTube. You guys can go and watch that and listen. You'll get a lot of enjoyment out of that. But Steve, thanks for opening up today.
Hey,
Wendell,
Yep.
great show tonight.
Yeah, thank you guys.
And
Thank
with
you.
that, ladies and gentlemen, if you got a comment on this show, or if you've seen a UFO, give us a comment below. If you got a story to share with us, buried stories 74@gmail.com. I forget it all the time. I'm getting old. With that, have a good evening.